and welcome. Thank you very much for coming. I often say as well, I'm really sorry you're standing. If you want to sit, feel free to come and sit wherever you want as well. I feel a bit bad about standing at the back. I am a sitter on the floor person. I really am. For those of you that, people do offer to squish as well. You've got one there maybe, and up to you. I'm going to close that for now. It does get really loud. I'm really sorry. So I have got a big gob, so hopefully that helps. And often, full of shit, so you can predict what I'm saying. If anybody here is into psychology or is a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or a counsellor or a therapist, feel free to ask me. Is anyone?
Yeah, psychology.
Okay. So I like that. So same. But you can ask me for a free CPD certificate if you want one. So if you come and get my number afterwards or my email, I just know your real name. I'd need to know your real name and your real email, I'm afraid, to give you one. I can't say like, I don't know, something slut or whatever came to this. Like,
Well,
they did, but yeah. I mean, I used to be called Adhored for a long time on FetLife and other places for my personal one, but yeah, if you need a certificate, just ask me if you want one, because listen, they're normally like 60 quid for an hour and a half, aren't they? So it is free of charge. I'll be shit at doing it, just you have to hassle me. You've got to be prepared to hassle me. The idea of these workshops, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Deb. I'm known as the Kink Shrink on FetLife. As I've got people who are into psychology here, I can't bullshit today, can I? But I do try. I do try most of the time. I am 60 years old. I've been into kink and the alternative lifestyle since I was young. I was active since I was 17. But I also happen to do psychology as my living as well. But I won't be here next month. I'm in Norway doing their National Kink Conference. So I've got I think 3 workshops a day for a couple of days. They're flying me out, which is lovely. I've been before and they're a really lovely group of people. But they're very set workshops. This one I started about 9, maybe 10 years ago, I'm not sure. But the idea was that if we just did one, we'd see how it went, because no one else was doing anything like this. But then they've been really popular ever since, so they've carried on. The idea is, though, that they are, I say this every time, I'm really boring, they are a Q&A. So it's down to you for the content that you want, if you want to ask me anything. So it's not a set subject, but it can be set by you. And often what happens is, I say, so let's start off with a question. Everyone goes, I'm not asking a fucking question. So it takes a little while to build up. And then we get towards the end, everyone's going, I've got a question. And I'm like, I've got to go, though. So it can be anything to do with psychology. It can be anything to do with genetics and epigenetics, around kink, around consensual non-monogamy. It can be to do with anything around relationships, how to have them. It can be to do with limits. It can be to do with boundaries. It can be to do with mental health. It can be to do with communication. All of those things are out and up for grabs. I'm not saying I'll know the answer, but I think a few people do try and get me to. I'm sure there's often a plant who asks a question thinking I won't know the answer, but we'll see, she says, touch wood. We'll see. So it is up to you and over to you as to what sort of thing you want to ask or what you want to find out a bit more about, because there aren't many places where we get these questions answered, especially on the kink scene. You can write and then you get somebody who often gives their opinion or they give their experience. I think my experience is very different to my clinical knowledge, if that makes sense. And I think experience matters and it helps, but I also know a bunch of experienced people who are fucking cunts and assholes and dangerous and not nice people. And I think there are really experienced people who are lovely and have a lot to share, but we are just a reflection of the outside world. We're not all lovely. We often say that, oh no, kink is such a lovely world. Everyone knows what they're talking about. Everyone is really kind. Yes, I would really hope that a lot of people I know are, and that's great, but there are also predators and some not so nice people. And I just think we need to just make sure that we know that. So over to you. Who's got a question to start us off with? See, look, straight away.
At the moment, I'm very much of a newbie.
right?
At the moment, I'm kind of researching sensory and impact, and the feeling of like ASMR tingles versus like kink, and it's very, very interesting dynamic. What opinions do you have there?
So the question was, I'm a newbie. Is it all right if I repeat it? But if I get it wrong, please correct me. And I'm researching ASMR tingles and kink. What's my opinion on that? What are the differences? What do you think? Is anyone here into ASMR? Yep, a few people. Do people know what it is? So it's often when you hear sounds and vibrations and different things and different frequencies, you watch people do things, but you hear it. It's very much playing on your senses, and sensory play is big, isn't it? Is anyone here neurodivergent? By the way, a friend of ours, just so you know as well, a friend of ours is doing, I know people say I still can't afford it, but she is fucking cheap to get a diagnosis and to, so she diagnoses ADHD and she can also do all meds and stuff as well. And she's a lot cheaper because you often end up paying about 1,500 to 2.5 grand. She's under £1,000 by far. So, and that's something she knows, and she's a very good friend of lots of ours as well. It's really interesting because we start talking about neurodivergence and we start talking about kink quite often. I promise there's a link. For those of us that are autistic, we quite like kink and play because we can negotiate, we know exactly what we're doing, we can have a discussion about it, we don't need to follow all the vanilla rules of relationships, we just know what we're doing, so we feel safe in what we're doing. And we might also have different sensory issues as well, and they can really be played with as a top or a bottom. And the same for ADHD, when we're looking for things like dopamine hits or fun or different things, and we have very different sensory needs. And ASMR has really come up around that. It's interesting, is there a difference between sensory and kink? Is there? Because I'm going to say no. I think anything that gives you feels is a nice thing to have. Who here would like to be split open with a cane? Have blood running down their arse and they've got all these massive like cuts? Anyone? Oh, that's the sort of level I like playing at sometimes, so it's really fine to say that. But who here would just like someone's nails over their skin? So that's sensory, isn't it? But also you have quite a few different senses. So your senses really matter as to which and why, which one's going to be turned on. ASMR can be visual, but it's mainly auditory, as in you hear it. Who here likes a little whisper in the ear of, you wait till tonight? Or I can't wait till tonight? Or who likes a little sort of like a growl or something in your ear as someone's just getting ready next to you, or they're doing something, you just hear that, I can't wait till later, or something. Do you like to hear things? Do you like your senses being taken away? Who likes being blindfolded? Anyone? Do you like earplugs in at the same time, or do you like them separate? Do you like all of your senses being taken away, so you're just left with no? So you like some, you were nodding. And we're also different about this, and ASMR can play on those. You can put ASMR, and I don't know how many videos there are, I've got someone I know playing with a lot of this stuff at the moment, but you can use ASMR while you're playing. So you can use it as a distraction, or you can use it as a turn on. So if you've got something playing in your ears and you've got, let's say you want to do some kind of torture scene or a kidnap scene or you don't know where you're going. Like if you've got some of these auditory things around you where you've got a ball gag in, you've got sensory, all your senses are shut off, but someone's put a set of headphones on you and you hear footsteps, you hear someone walk in, or you don't know who they are, or you hear them around you, that's playing with sounds and senses, but it's also fucking your brain up at the same time. I don't know about you as well, what's interesting is through research, what we know is we can control pain in different ways. Who here thinks they're pretty good at controlling pain that they're receiving? Some do, some don't want to admit it. Yeah, see that? Just grinning there. Don't tell her, for fuck's sake. So we can play games sometimes with how we deal with pain through our breath, through counting, through using different parts of our brain and different processes. We can also disappear sometimes. Some people call it space, subspace. We can get really lost in our build-up of hormones and chemicals. As a top, if you're the one playing with somebody, you can really fuck that process up for somebody and make them feel more pain with next to nothing when you know what you're doing. So getting people to do things that take them out of their mindset or out of their fix of where they're going. Let's say your arm's really tired today and you can't be bothered to hit too hard. You can play games in different ways and change people's pain reception. You can really play with that, and ASMR can do that as well. We can really get into that when we start playing with people's senses. So let's say they're listening. This isn't any form of paedophilia in any way, shape or form. Let's say you're listening to a children's birthday party and they're all singing happy birthday and it's all lovely and you're smiling, but someone's doing something pretty awful to you. That really fucks your senses up. And it's quite clever because you can make somebody feel more pain. You can do the same with ASMR because you feel your senses tingling in a different way. Who here also separates their play from sex? So quite a few do. Whereas who here mixes? So play is always sexual. So some of us will do fully clothed, non-sexual play. Some of us will go, no, it's got a load of sex in it. And the senses really matter in that as to how we're turned on and what we're doing. And ASMR can do that as well. So it's just really its own form of sensory play, if it talks to us. But then some of us can get confused. For example, if you listen to ASMR, if it's giving you tingles, what sort of tingles is it giving you? Are they sexual? Are they just, no, I just really like this? Who here's got like a favourite teddy or a favourite blanket? Even from being a kid. We've often got things that last with us, and they are very special, those things that we have. They're called many things, but most of us call them some form of, they're a transition toy from either breast or bottle or parent to be able to go over into something that's more independent. And they can be really important. Who here has still got their childhood blankie or teddy? A few of you. How do you feel when someone washes it? Some people are like, fuck off, don't wash it, and it's black and it was originally white. You know, it's like, it's crazy. And when you smell it, you're like, I'm not even sleeping in the same bed with you. But the person who's got it is like, no, this is really important to me. Who here can't stand the feel of a label or a ticket? I mean, that's quite an interesting one because I'm not saying it's a symptom of ADHD. Some people just don't like fucking tickets. It's not also necessarily a symptom of autism either, but some of us really hate some sensory things on our bodies, or we won't wear wool, but we will wear cotton, or we can't stand some things. We also can't stand some lights, like that. We also can't stand, we can hear noises differently as well. So what ASMR does, it plays with those senses. And it can really be used in sex and play.
Speaking of sensory something, so I'm having a double here, so I was wondering if there was any space near the front.
Just bring your chair up. This is a temporary home. I'm sorry, I am trying to shout. That's why I try and get a bit closer as well. There's so much sound, isn't there? Is that right? I mean, you know, come up if you want to. If you miss something I say, please tell me and I'll start projecting a little more, but then I worry about I'm going to be too loud as well, especially for out there. But, you know, all that theatre training needs to be useful for something. And I'm not even a top. Okay. Okay, let's go. I can do that, that's no problem. I just get a little more resonance, a little more tone, darling, as you say. So ASMR can definitely be used sexually, and it can definitely be used in some kind of play environment. It can be used to increase and decrease pain. As a dominant, it's a fucking good tool, or as a top, if you want to fuck someone up a little bit to play with their senses, because it's really hard to get two contradictory senses going on at once as well. So it's quite a nice play with somebody of something that's really contradictory. It's quite a clever thing to do. Does that answer that at all or not? I have notes, brilliant. She has notes. So if you can't hear me, she has notes. In some way. As I say, I'm not Go on, what were you going to say?
Since you said about subspace, I'm new to the Kink scene, I'm new to the place. I've read a lot about subspace, but I was never able to achieve. Is there any recommendation? Like how could I reach out to the level of subspace or something?
So what I'm being asked is, I mentioned something called subspace. Is there a recommendation on how to get there? As a bottom, has anybody reached subspace before? Anyone had that experience? Okay. It is not a goal and it's not guaranteed. This is the thing. There used to be a really old piece of shit going around that said that if you play this way and you do 5 minutes of this and you increase this and you do this and you do that, it still goes round to this day that will get you into subspace. It is a piece of shit. It's not proven and it doesn't work. I am 60 years old. I've been doing this since I was 17. I've never hit that space. You may not. I don't tend to drift away. Now that might be my neurodivergence. It's very possible. I like to be in control. I don't because I'm a sub, but I feel like it's very important to me that I know what's going on. And I like to enjoy it, but I don't hit subspace. I never have. There's also top space. Anyone here who's a top, who's reached some form of top space? So some people reach quite a flow that they're in. But I think it's a little bit like when you're 15 and you're reading a fucking story about what an orgasm feels like. Who here has read those things where, like you go back to, fuck me, I'm showing my age. My mum used to read Catherine Cookson novels, right? They're really, they're quite fun, or Jilly Cooper type stuff. So they're slightly pornographic, but not too much that your average housewife wouldn't be too uncomfortable reading it in public. But the problem with them is, what they describe is, what sort of orgasm do you think they describe? She lay there shuddering. She couldn't feel anything. She was lost in a heated frenzy as it overswept her body, as it was an earth-shattering wave of, what a fucking load of bullshit. Look, if you've had an orgasm, it might feel like that sometimes, but often it doesn't. And sometimes it's like that was quite good, but it wasn't quite there. That's right, isn't it?
I was having orgasms for 2 or 3 years and thinking they weren't orgasms because I was expecting that.
Yep, there you go. So can I share that?
Yeah.
I was having orgasms for 2 or 3 years. I didn't even realise that they were because I was expecting that knee-quaking, earth-shattering experience, right? And I think subspace is a little bit the same. You might already be in it. I can definitely go into a slightly altered state and get lost, where everything else around me goes quite quiet. I'm very focused, and I'm kind of quite nice. But there are other people who completely pass out, which I think can be fucking dangerous. I remember being at a play party and a friend of mine was so under, I was watching this person play with her and I was like, she doesn't like that. I know she doesn't like that. Now I'm really shy and retiring, and I went straight over and I said, what the fuck are you doing? And he said, well, I'm just playing. I said, there's no way she agreed to that. He went, don't fucking interfere in the scene. Don't you know it's really bad etiquette? I went, I don't give a fuck if I think you're being unsafe with a friend of mine. She's out of it, and she was gone. It was like it took quite a while to bring her out of it. For those of you that really go into subspace or have had that, would you say you're out of it, or it's just like a slightly altered state? You're out of it. For anyone else, who's out of it and who's in an altered state? You're out of it. Your altered state, okay. Altered state. So how would you describe an altered state? Yeah, so you just get that sort of an interesting sort of like a focus that goes on that says, wow, I'm just here and that person's just here. Almost. Yes, so those sensations do kind of like, they roll is interesting. Yeah, they might roll into one, or they just feel like a continuous flow of something, don't they? And maybe that's what it should be called, a flow state. Now, for some people, out of it, what does that mean for you?
Non-verbal, not responding.
Non-verbal, not responding. Now, of course, also, I'm not saying this is you, we've also got to be careful because Dissociative states can happen as well, especially if we have a history of trauma. And people go, oh, that's subspace. No, it's not. It's really different. That's a trauma state. And it can be. I'm not saying yours is, right? And she knows that because I do know her, so it's a little bit different. So it's really important to understand that it might not be what you think it is. It might just be a focused state or something else. There is no trick of building up endorphins. If you read some of these writings of how to get there. For some people, it's pushing the pain barrier way too far, maybe. For some people, it's pushing the pleasure barrier. For some people, it's about the connection that they have with a person that's going on in order to get that space. For some, it's just, you are all that matters to me right now, and it's the state of mind that we get into that really matters. It could be more likely that we would get it if we are doing something that does impact our senses sometimes, because it will make us more focused on certain things. Because when one of your senses is gone, the other senses pick up a lot heavier. It could be that. So it really varies, but there is no secret. There's no chemical quick way. Even if you take a load of MDMA before you play or anything else as well, that's just a drug's mind. That's not subspace. But I do think we make it this holy grail of orgasm, which is just ridiculous because it doesn't exist. Because don't care what gender you are, I don't care what bits you've got in your body, the sort of orgasms you've had really fucking vary. And for a lot of us, a lot of people don't have an orgasm. There is a fair percentage, especially of, I'm going to use the word women for now, but like vagina owners, been brought up as women, absolutely kitted out as that, because unfortunately the research doesn't include everybody. I wish it did, but it doesn't. When you look at your average heterosexual woman, let's say, you'd be surprised. What do you think the stats are on how many of them have not had an orgasm before the age of 30? 75%. Any others? Sorry? Oh, sorry? About 60. Unfortunately, it's not quite that big, but it is around 50%. You'd be shocked at how many heterosexual women who have just had male lovers, as in heterosexual men, sorry, heterosexual men, do not have an orgasm or fake it. And actually, I have an interesting issue with that one because I'm also going to blame myself. How many people who own a vagina in this room have faked an orgasm before? How many of you have faked? Yeah. It's an interesting one because actually faking doesn't help you, but it also doesn't help them. Because what I get is a lot of people come into my therapy room if they're talking about sex and saying, but I've slept with 20 women and they've all come, and I go, oh, have they? And then I get people, look, I have been an utter whore in the most beautiful ways for most of my life. And my figures hit more towards 1,000 people I've slept with than 500, right? Let's put it that way. And I can tell you now, I've also slept with a lot of people of all genders in different ways. But the amount of heterosexual men who say to me, I can tell when she fakes it though. And I'm like, well, you can't. You can't. And actually, I don't think it does your relationship any favours. I remember working with a couple, lesbian couple, married, and she'd been faking her orgasm for 5 years because she thought that being with her wife, and they ended up getting married, she thought it was going to be a temporary short-term relationship. 5 years. So then she had to carry on. But the damage that caused to both of them was unbelievable because she thought she was really giving her pleasure, and she felt so betrayed and so upset by Jesus, like, why did you lie to me? So we can lie or maybe exaggerate once or twice, but what if that relationship does go on to be more long-term? How damaging is that? Or you've got somebody, regardless of their gender, who thinks, yeah, I know, I'm just going to do this and it's going to be fine. You're going to have such a good time. And like, I think regardless of what you've got, whether it's a clitoris or a cock or whatever bits you've got, we all come for different reasons in different ways. Different things turn us on, whether it's our mind or imagination. And I remember years ago, there was this, she's about 19, she wrote this piece on FetLife about this is how to make a man, she was talking about penis owners, have an orgasm. And technically, she was really correct. It was a good piece of writing. And I said, I have a different approach. Mine is ask them or show me. Because technically that could be correct. But if somebody's really used to masturbating or doing something in a certain way, how many people here masturbate? Some do, some don't. No, quite a lot of us. How many people masturbate to pornography? Less, right? Some. How many people masturbate to their imagination? Imagination is so much better, isn't it? I'm a cuck queen. Do we know what a cuck queen is? So I like my partners to fuck other people. And I want to have a good time, but I want to feel slightly in turmoil about it. So I like my partners to have a really fucking good time, or a good fucking time, either, but I want to feel slightly jealous, not in a bad way, but I want to feel that. And if I wank to that stuff, fuck me, I'll come in a second. But my imagination is better than them taking a video of it. The video is always disappointing. I'm like, oh, it wasn't quite as good as... So it's the words, it's the auditory. You could say it's even ASMR. It's the words that get to me and hearing what's going on. That's what really turns me on. I love my partner having sex with someone else. And even better if I really fucking love them. Because people will say to me when they meet me, I can do that to you. And I went, yeah, no, it won't do anything. I don't even know you. I've got no investment in you. Good for you. Have a good time. It's different. But when we think about these things, working out what turns us on, we get into habits. Who here feels they know their own body fairly well? You know your own body? You might know what makes you come, you might not. That doesn't mean you don't know your body. That can be our mind a lot of the time. I meet a lot of people with different issues around orgasms or coming too fast or too slow, and you know, it's all workable on. It really is. But a lot of it is our mind, 9 times out of 10. The problem is you can also get into really strong habits. So if you turn around and say, I wank doing this, it's only clockwise, I'm only going to do this, don't touch this, you've got to have this pressure, you've got to have this much spit or this much lube, or you've got to do this and you've got to do that, we actually set up a problem for future partners. I've discovered a Lilo in the last 5 years. Anyone got a Lilo? Fuck me. Like, what an interesting toy, because it works with ultrasonic and it works with waves. So when you put it near your own clitoris, not on it, because fuck me, I'm going to go through the bed. Honestly. Also, like, it's not for shoe shining a clitoris, for fuck's sake. It doesn't need your knuckles running over it like a cheese grater. That person who owns that clitoris is going backwards, not because they love it, it's because it's too much a lot of the time. We need to talk about these things. But the Lilo has a really, I can only take it on its lowest setting. Hi, I'm like, get it off me, get it away from me. It's this tiny little thing. But it's really clever because it works internally to make you have quite a different orgasm. So lots of different toys. How many, like, if you are a vagina owner, sorry, but how many of you come from penetration? 1, 2. How many of you do not come from penetration? And if you look around the room, that hits that 70-30 split. Now, some people say that's a fallacy. It is not. Most vagina owners do not come from an orgasm, don't have an orgasm or come from penetration. They need stimulation externally, and sometimes not both at the same time. Because some people say, no, don't worry, I'm going to be pumping into you, or I've got this massive dildo, and I'm going to be doing your clitoris, and you're going to have a great time. But actually, for some of us, we're like, oh no, which one do I focus on and what do I do? And for some of us, it's great. And it's the same. People think anyone with a penis doesn't fake it. Wrong. They do. How can you tell if someone with a penis has faked it or not? People can have dry orgasms. Anyone had a dry orgasm who's got a penis? Yep. So people have dry orgasms, which means there is no liquid. I've even come across a client, by the way, when I talk about clients, I have their permission. I do not talk to any of my clients here. I don't break any consent or boundaries. It's really important to me, because somebody a few months ago said, she was my client, and she's not. Like, I wouldn't do that. Like, I do have some professional boundaries, not many, but I have some. But it's one of my clients, actually, what he trained himself to do, and he was a he with a penis, he would fake an orgasm, and then he would let a little bit of urine out into the whatever he was screwing, so it felt like there was a liquid there. Now, I haven't consented to that for a start, but I really understand where that person was coming from to try and like to say to somebody, yeah, I've definitely had an orgasm, but they've never actually had one in their life, but didn't want to let down the other person. So people do fake things in a variety of ways. And I think people can also fake subspace. They're like, yeah, I'm gone, it's great. I think we just need to be honest with a partner. What's the fear though? If your partner says to you, or a new person says to you, I'm going to give you the best time, I'm really good at this. This will happen to you, it's guaranteed, you're going to have such a great time. What's the fear then if you're the person receiving that? Rejection, maybe? Say again? Disappointing someone, yep. And also, I think a lot of us go into, well, if they're so fucking good, it must be me. We don't actually think they're full of shit. We tend to believe it, especially if we're a little insecure or worried or a bit scared, or especially if we're new. How many people here are quite new to the kink scene or the kink within the last year or two? How many people are like, fuck off, you're not? How many? Old, past it, shriveled up like me. Right, so, but really good with rope. So if you, how many people have been doing this for like 5 years? 10? 20? 30? 40? Oh, just me, great, I really am old. Can you all age up a bit, please? Come on. But people are quite frightened of me, I find. I don't like casual play anyway, but I don't get approached a lot for relationships or play. And that's quite interesting because you can know too much, especially if you're giving a running critique. Don't do that, I don't. But that's what people are frightened of sometimes. You can know too little as well about your own safety and your own care. I was just talking to the person who's about to do the workshop afterwards, and actually, anyone here know anatomy? Quite well or a little bit? A little bit. How many know first aid? How many can resusc somebody if they stop breathing or their heart stopped? Okay, a few of you. How many of you can mentally get somebody out of a panic attack or a really bad space quite easily within like a minute or two, if they're playing or doing something? I think you need those skills before you learn how to brandish rope and a whip. But I'm quite old-fashioned in that because I might know them, but it's no good if I'm the one who's fucking unconscious. And actually, breath play is really popular again, like freak talk, dark talk instead of TikTok. You've got a lot of 16 to 18-year-olds. If somebody makes you unconscious, I really want to know that they can get me back, or at least know what they're doing to get me back. And a lot of people cannot. And it's no good if I know it, because I'm the one who is unconscious. So I want that person to know, but it's very different knowing something than knowing it when you're panicking. There are still people killed by what we do. There are still people killed by the excuse of what we do. BDSM as a defense is still used in court, but they were into it. Yeah, but they didn't agree for you to fucking kill them and chop them up and put them in a suitcase afterwards, did they? That's not what they agreed to. And there was a girl locally to me, not 10 years ago, I lived near Worthing, and that's what happened to her while she was away. He said, no, we met up, she's on FetLife, she's into kink. That doesn't mean she wants to die, like, come on. But it's used as a reason to say it was an accident. So there's that. How dangerous is breath play? Why? So it can cause permanent brain damage, it can cause quite interesting psychological damage, and you can die. But a lot of people don't see it as edge play. Is waterboarding, do we know what waterboarding is? Does everyone know what waterboarding is? Say no if you don't. So for those of you that don't know, it's a form of torture that was used. Of course it's not used anymore. In Guantanamo Bay and other places, who knows? Where literally what you're trying to do is you end up putting a towel or a cloth over the person's face and you pour water. Copious amounts of water. There was a case, I just mentioned this actually, didn't I? I was talking to you about it out there, where somebody did it with a nurse. She was the top, he was the bottom. She said she'd done a lot of research and she knew what she was doing, and they did waterboarding. he ended up with permanent brain damage. And his medical bills had already hit over $750,000. And he would never, ever be okay again. And we think that shit happens to other people, but it doesn't. What are the things that impact breath play? What should you know about the person? What do you mean by medical issues? Anything. So what tablets they're on, would that count? Would their blood pressure matter? 100%. Do you know what a normal blood pressure is? Do you know that? I took a kid, I was at a cheer competition recently, and the parents were saying, what do you know about this? She's having a fucking panic attack. I think I know quite a lot. Took her, but got her checked out by the paramedics because they're very specific for certain injuries. They really know what they're doing and they all know me. And took the child's blood pressure as well as a sugar check. She gave her blood pressure, went, brilliant, you're in an okay range. And he went, no, I just have to check it. And I said, what do you mean? It's a paramedic. And he said, no, I don't know what the normal blood pressure is for a child. And I went, they're all children here. This is really worrying. It's really worrying to me. What's a normal blood pressure for that person? Now, I'm not saying you give them a fucking medical before you start playing, unless that's your thing. A full medical could be fun. You never know. Dentistry work or whatever. And now we change. Isn't that funny, isn't it? Dentistry. Oh, no, not that. That's fucking weird. There's a line. You just crossed it. Drilling into teeth with nothing. That's it. Yeah, okay. Okay, that's not you then. We also need to check, what are their breathing and airways normally like? Do they have things like asthma, COPD? Do they take inhalers? Are they on aspirin or any form of blood thinner? Like, what the fuck are they on and what are they doing and what sort of experience and history have they had? How do we do breath play? So we can choke. Is there more than one choke? So there's a blood choke and airways, like restrictive. Which one do you use? You use air. Anyone use blood play? Yeah. So it's interesting, like, what is your training? Like, you can take someone out very quickly. I love these films where someone's choking and they've got a full catch around their neck and they're still awake 2, 3, 4 seconds later and they're fighting. You're like, oh, fuck off. That's not possible. Not if you've got anyone here do martial arts. How long does it take to take someone out with a blood choke? Could be. Yes. But if you've got an average human, it's going to be well under 3 seconds. Well under 3 seconds. All of which can cause issues. There is no such thing as safe choking, safe breath play, or safe waterboarding. And again, it's one of those things we say, yes, it's really popular, let's get into it, let's do it, yeah, choke me out. You need to check the room out as well. The amount of times I've been choked out in high heels and a corset is unbelievable. If I hit the deck, I'm more likely to break my fucking ankle than anything. I might not, but...
Another interesting one. So when I did one martial arts seminar, and they asked people to be choked out, people volunteered, and they asked first, have you been to the toilet?
Yes, because you will piss yourself and potentially shit yourself when you're choked out. You know when you do deep throating, some of you might not, but when you do deep throating and you've got the person's head over the end of the bed, so they're tipped back like that, do you know that one? Yeah. If not, give it a go. When the person is lying on the bed, regardless of their gender as well, if you have their throat tilted back, you've got more access straight down the throat. So if they're standing over you and they're doing it with I wouldn't recommend this with a dildo actually because you can't feel it. I think you need to feel this. So for me, I wouldn't recommend that one with anything that's rubber or plastic or anything else as well. I'd say go with flesh, personally, for safety. An esophageal bleed is not a good look, trust me. So when their head's tilted over, you can really stop someone from having any access to breathing. It really is its own form of breath play, but the likelihood of you pissing yourself statistically goes up because of that choking sensation and feeling. Unless you're into anyone in here to piss play? I don't quite like it sometimes. But, you know, it's like, it's maybe not a good look, because I'll tell you now, unless I've got the right bed sheet out, I'm fucking turned off. Because now what I'm thinking is, I've got to change the fucking sheets, and I've maybe ruined my mattress, and I'm not happy about that. And they're being all dominant, going, yes, and I'm like, oh, fuck off. My sheets are shit now. I've just changed them. And I have another rule in my house, is that if my sheets have just come out from outside and I put them on the bed, my God, you better be clean when you get into them. I'm not doing any dirty, sexy play. I just want to smell my sheets for the night. I don't really do that because sex is good fun, but it's really interesting, isn't it, that all these things that we aren't aware of or we don't necessarily know about, and then do we ask the right questions? I would rather ask too many questions than answer too many questions to the authorities afterwards, or to other people who are saying, don't play with that person, they're dangerous. And also, if somebody, like for example, if you are saying, these are my limits, I'm a big believer in opting in rather than opting out when you're discussing stuff. To say everything is on the table and you forget that one thing that you hate. I'd rather know it's all off the table until we start to bring it in and we understand it. But a lot of us in the middle of a scene will say, yes, fucking choke me. But we haven't really discussed it or don't know what we're doing. But we get carried away. Or it might be someone else's fetish, someone else's fetish is different to kink. Do we know the difference between fetish and kink? Anyone know the difference between a fetish and a kink? Well, they might all turn you on, but the fetish is the necessary thing in order to make you orgasm. So if you have a fetish on high heels and the person wears high heels, that's going to do it for you. Whereas kink is, I love these things, they're alternative. Or we might just do it for the suffering of someone. You were going to say?
That's like the DSM definition of fetish, like something you have to have for arousal or orgasm. Usually in the community, it's like a kink is like an activity like flogging or bondage, and a fetish is more like a specific need.
Yeah. So depending on who you talk to, if you want, I was just saying the DSM-5 definition is it in order to make you come. But we changed the use of words. Have you noticed how often we do that as well? We do it a lot, especially on the kink scene, whereby we say, no, this is what this means. Always start with the dictionary definition, always, and then ask somebody, what does that word mean to you? It's the same with kink. What are your limits? What's the limit? I don't know. Last week I was sort of making some jokes about I was going to hear whether I'm dying from secondary cancer or whether I've just got something wrong with me. It's not a joke, it was actually very real because I've had breast cancer and skin cancer, but I had a hot spot on a test, so they then retested. It turns out what it was is I'm not dying of secondary cancer, yay, but I had a broken rib. Now, people's immediate response is, what play have you been doing? I fucking haven't, right? And I didn't break a rib. And it didn't even hurt. I didn't even know I'd broken it, but it was tender to touch. But what's your definition of sexy or fetishy or kinky? I know people who want their ribs broken. I know people who want their fingers broken. I know people who want not to be able to walk or to bleed very badly. And I also know people who say, don't tickle me with that, that's enough. They're not right or wrong as long as you're aware of the risks that come with them. Or don't come, whatever, but you've got to be aware of risk, and you've also got to be aware of what that might mean if something did happen. We are in a very judgmental community at the moment. Anyone here had a scene go wrong where the person did something wrong? Anyone here? Anyone here had something go really wrong where the person abused you and did something you didn't want to do? Right? The question then becomes, because you can't, which one do you prove? Which one is abuse? We tend to judge other people by their action, but we tend to judge ourselves by our intent, if that makes sense. So they shouldn't have done that. That was ridiculous. They did that to me. They're abusive. But if you knew your intent wasn't to abuse, you wouldn't judge yourself as abusive. There's a big difference between toxicity, abuse, and intent, and all of these things that come into relationships, for sure. And people make mistakes. The scene is not a very forgiving place right now if you make a pretty bad mistake, I would argue. Anyone frightened of that? I am. I really am. Like, even with everything I say, like, the judgment can be quite interesting. What the fuck do you know, whatever. I've certainly broken people's consent over the years without meaning to. And my best example, I give it fairly often, is having this Amazonian woman, so strong and so tall and very fucking sexy, tied to an oak St. Andrew's cross that was the end of a bed, having a great time. We'd kidnapped her because that was all agreed, and we had her list of do's and don'ts from her dominant male partner. We were having a great time until I slapped her around the face. I used to switch a lot. I don't switch. It's not my thing anymore. I slapped her around the face. I'm not kidding when I say she broke part of the oak and part of the iron trying to kill me. I thought that she was going to break it all and come at me, and fuck knows what was going to happen. I felt totally confused. I went back to the list and I was like, face slapping, like, it's not on there. Like, I don't understand. We were very specific, asked lots of questions. I ended up phoning her dominant and said, what the fuck, like, this has just happened. I think she's going to kill me. Managed to calm her as well, took some time. He went, oh shit, yeah, I forgot that one. She doesn't like it. What I learned from that is I'm never going to take a second-hand list from anybody else. Even if she says, no, listen to him, or they say, listen to them, or he says, listen to him, whoever, it doesn't matter. I'm going to check with that person. But also, who here has left something off a list that they've written? Because I have before. Have you ever thought, fuck, I hate being pinched, right? I hate being pinched. I love being thumped. I mean, it doesn't make sense, does it?
Different pain.
Different pain. I don't, but I hate being pinched. So if you don't like being, but I've left that off a list fairly often, and somebody just pinches, and I'm like, don't do that, it's one of my limits. And they're like, well, I didn't know that, because I've left it off the list. Anyone done that? Honestly, please keep a checklist, but add to it all the time and send that same checklist to everybody, where you learn from it and add to it fairly quickly, and don't do things in the heat of passion, because I've even done that, certainly over the years, certainly have. Anyone go on?
I was just wondering, in terms of a checklist, what would you recommend? Because some of them are really long. Some of them are really short.
I think the longer the better, because who here, as I say, if you're quite new to kink and you don't know that even that some of these things exist, the word consent, oh, that's an interesting word, isn't it? Number one, you can't really legally give consent to a lot of the things that we do. Number two, does consent even really exist? My answer is very unpopular, even though I teach consent, and the answer is no. Because you don't know the consequences of everything that you're about to do, potentially, whether it's emotional, physical, or anything else. I didn't know that I love being thumped so much that eventually I'm going to need fucking steroid injections in my hips every year for the rest of my life because I've split my bursa. Do you know you can split your bursa? Did you know that if you're bent over in front of someone and they hit where your hips are when you're in that position, that the bursa can split? Now, you've got bursa over all sorts of different joints and different parts, but it did not cross my mind when I was 20 and 30, shit, my bursa might split and I'm going to need steroids for the rest of my life. Does it cross yours? Like, we don't know, do we? You genuinely don't know some of these things. Or when you look at domestic violence law changed a few years ago. What did it change to include? Do you know? Sorry? Yeah, so domestic violence used to be seen as physical or sexual. It now includes psychological. So coercion, when we're making somebody isolated, it can be name calling, it can be anything that's a threat to us psychologically is still classed as domestic violence. Who here, me, likes to be degraded? Fucking love degradation, right? It's one of my favourite things. That so I was 6 to 7 stone heavier about a year ago. I love to be called a fat fucking worthless cum dump. And people go, oh my God, how can you say that about your own body? Because it turns me on, that's why. And I like it. However, do we know though that if we're consistently called names and they're aggressive, how much damage that might do to our psyche? Because for me, I also know I need to hear that you're fucking incredible and you're amazing and you're beautiful and I love what we're doing. I need the balance. Hence, I don't like just the pick-up play, especially around degradation. But do we know what damage it really does long-term to us? The answer is we don't. There is no research on this yet. I'd be really curious to know. Because how is your self-esteem? How do you feel about yourself? If you say to me, you're fat, you're ugly, or whatever, I'm just going to go, okay, that's a you problem. You've got like, are you okay? Like, somebody stressed you out today, like, what's your issue? However, if you call me stupid, that one is going to hit me. It's really going to hit me because although I haven't done my PhD, I've been offered 2, I do have 20 years of postgrads after a degree and an MBA and have an MSc in my field. Because my own personal shit is you have to keep being really clever and know everything. It's quite handy for my job right now, but it's not handy for life necessarily. So sometimes what we're called isn't really the issue, it's what we believe. And I call that life's coffee table, because I can go out there and I can say, oi, stupid, or like I'll take for mine, because I was really okay with being called overweight. If I say, oi, fatty, a percentage of people of different weights, of larger and smaller, will go, fuck me, she's rude, what the hell is wrong with her? But a percentage of people of all sizes will also turn around and say, fuck, she means me. And it's very rarely to do with their size. It's to do with what's going on in their minds. So if that's damaging and hurts us, maybe we've twisted it to turn us on, maybe we haven't. But we do have to think about, if we continuously say things, what damage could that eventually cause one day? And the truth is, we don't know yet. So consent is an interesting thing. We can consent to right here and right now, and we can be risk aware. But do you even know the risks? I think that's quite hard. Do you genuinely know every risk? For example, I have an ulnar nerve issue at the moment. It's not from rope. It's not from anything I've done. I don't even know how I did it. Again, like the broken rib, what the fuck is wrong with me? So I cannot feel these 3 fingers properly. Do you know how quickly nerves heal? Sorry? 6 weeks, a millimetre a day. So if my damage is up here, which it is apparently, this is going to take over a year to heal. A millimetre a day. And that's if it does heal. So I've got permanent pins and needles. So if I was being tied or doing certain things in certain positions and they say, can you feel your hand? You'd be like, nope. But I couldn't feel it before. But again, you know this from like, so what you've got is Opal Fruit does the rope workshop at 5:30. We can turn and take all the precautions we want in rope. It can be one little twist that just goes and you've caused nerve damage. You just don't know what different people can take in different ways. And as I say, this is going to take over a year to get better. Clearly, I need to be less clumsy or something, don't I? But I'll blame my neurodivergence. I don't know. So in some way. But I think it's a difficult one. Did I answer your question enough? I think the longer the better. I think one that covers everything. I think keep one on file that you send to everybody. I don't know about you. If somebody wants to penetrate any of my holes or get inside my head or hurt me, I think you can read a fucking list no matter how long it is. If you can't be bothered to do that, for me, you're not my sort of person. About my limits, about the discussions. I don't have a problem with how long it is. I have a problem if the person reads or doesn't. And sometimes that can tell us, we're like, oh, I've never heard that word before, what is it? And then we can have a look, because there are thousands of words for the things that we do. Problem is, if I say to you, I'm into cut queen, and you go, cool. What we need to say is, I know what that means, technically. What does it mean to you are the words we should always be asking. I'm into impact play. What the fuck does that mean? With what? A truck? That's an impact, isn't it?
It's not wrong, yeah. It's an impact.
My eldest daughter years ago came home with really bloody bad knees. And as she was sitting, I said to her, I mean, I did ask her how it happened, but it's another thing, but I said to her, shit, you can get trauma-induced psoriasis. Did you know that? So you can get trauma-induced psoriasis. And I said, Her name's Darcy. I said, Darcy, be careful. Like, I can see psoriasis. You need to go and see a dermatologist as quickly as possible. She went, what do you mean? She was a little bit drunk that night. And she stepped out into a road, and it sounds awful. But actually, there was a car who was also being, luckily for her, driven by somebody who was drunk, but he was doing like 2 miles an hour. He was just like drifting along, and it bumped her, and she went, what the fuck, and just went to her knees. She's had a major impact, hasn't she, or an incident, but it's given her psoriasis for nearly the rest, like, she's had psoriasis now for over 10 years. From an impact, a blunt trauma, which, by the way, we do as well. I know other people, for example, who've been played with impact play for a really long time, and for example, they can no longer be caned on their arse because the skin will open up even if they sit on it for too long. So we need to stop. We need to put, one of the best things you can use, especially to save your skin or to look after it, is any, do you know, like silicone scar tape? It's really necessary. Have it in your toolkit. Silicone scar tape. Silicone scar tape. Have it in your kit. If you have any form of injury that's skin-based or delicate skin, or you want to avoid that piece of skin, silicone scar tape can be put on anything, not a fresh injury, when it's healed. Put it on, it can be re-peeled, rinsed off, and it can be put back on, and it will protect that area and it will heal it at the same time. So if you've got something, or you've got scars, or maybe if you keloid scar, if you have ADHD, you are more likely to have something called Ehlers-Danlos, or hypermobility, which affects your skin, your mobility, and your flexibility. So you're really popular as a rope bunny. Because all of a sudden, like, you're like, yeah, I can do that, that's fine, or I can do the splits, and they're like, yes. Or you're a circus trick person. However, your healing is different, and your scarring is different. And you can end up with keloid scarring. You're more likely to end up with keloid scarring if you're, now it's not any person of colour, actually, it's black skin. And I'm using that on purpose. It's the darker skin. A lot of Asian don't get as much, but you're much more likely statistically to get keloid scarring. So again, if you're playing with somebody and they ain't the same fucking colour as you, ask questions, please. Get educated. Because this is all stuff, it's taken me 20 years to learn all this stuff, but I still would rather somebody had some idea rather than, oh no, don't worry, the scar will disappear. What the fuck do you know? Who made you a dermatologist? But we do think we know, and we base it on the last person. So try and check words. When I'm working with couples or thruples, I do this system called bronzes, silvers and golds, rules in their relationship. And we start with words of, well, a gold might be, I want you to be faithful. What the fuck does that word mean? Are we talking pretty woman? No, you know, you can fuck someone but don't kiss them. Are we saying, no, you can't even get another person's number? Are we saying, of course, we're polyamorous, you can be with who you like, but don't be unfaithful? Now, what does that mean? And a lot of people will put their goals as penetration. So you mean voluntarily? Oh yeah, that goes without saying. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Nothing goes without saying. So the definition of words is really important on those lists. Even if I give one of those lists out, and I have got a really long one, if they can't be bothered to read it or they keep forgetting it, that's quite dangerous as well. So we need to build our play up slowly. I don't know about you, how many people have met people who turn around and say to you, one of the first things they say is, what are your limits? So you get that quite a lot when you're about to play with someone. Some do, some don't. One of the next words I hear is, because I want to push your boundaries. Why? I've discovered my boundaries over time, and they're quite extreme. Why on earth would you want to push them? Because that's probably going to involve a donkey or a child, and I'm not doing either. That's not okay. So why would you do that? So it's really interesting. I want to push your limits. Like, well, you're going to get me arrested, actually, if anything. Or let's do that thing in public. Thanks, I quite like my job. I want to carry on doing my job. I don't want to lose my license to practice. Not that we have a proper license in the UK. That's a whole other story. But I see emergencies going off, isn't it? Mine never goes off. Does anybody else's? It's the test for an emergency on your mobiles. Mine doesn't go off either. What they'll tell you is, we're just testing, don't panic. Well, clearly there is some kind of elitist selective, because I'd be fucked because I didn't get along. I mean, I know my heritage is Jewish and I'm queer, but fucking hell, come on. Oh, now it's going off. Oh! What, so I don't get in because you've locked the fucking door? Christ. Oh my God. Now I'm getting two. They really love me now. They really love me. But, like, boundaries and limits, they're really important. And I think if you haven't done something as well, I think we have to be honest and say, I'm curious about that on my list, that maybe I want to try it in a different environment, in a different way. Maybe I don't want to try it in the middle of a scene, because if I hate it, it's going to ruin what we've just done as well. I think that's important. Anyone here have no boundaries or no limits? I've met the odd person who will say, I don't have any. I'm like, and do you know what my test is? Give me your bank account details and transfer all your money over to me. It's funny how all of a sudden they've got a boundary or a limit. Give me your bank cards or give me all your money, and all of a sudden they've got a limit. I find that one interesting because we all have some. We all think something might be sexy or fun, but we don't know the impact until we've tried it. I think it's really important to do it with trust, maybe not on first times and different things, but as we build trust. Because does this person know how to read bodies? Like, what signs does somebody have if they're in distress at something you're doing? So what do you look for? If you're a top or a switch, if someone's in distress, how do they show you that they're in distress? So their breathing pattern could change, but your breathing pattern can also change if you're turned on and excited. So what's the difference? So their breathing pattern might change. If someone's in distress, what else might be a signal? Clammy hands. So they might sweat all over their body. They might become glistening or like moisture where there normally isn't. By the way, if you turn around and say to a partner, you must love this because you've got a hard on or you're wet, no. Do you know, people who are brutally assaulted can still get a hard on and get wet. Why? Because it's a physiological state of defense. So wetness isn't always a sign of a turn on. Really isn't, and people really don't get that. Because I've heard that so many times, oh, you're wet, you're loving this, and you're like, yeah, I don't know. So it could be verbal, so it could be breathing, it can be skin. What else can it be? What else could it be? If someone's in distress, do you know what you're looking for? Yeah, so that's a tool to use. So they could have just gone into a different space. Who here has heard of fight, flight, or freeze? Have you also heard of friend, fuck, flop, foe, and fawn? You have if you listen to me, I'll tell you, because I talk about it all the time. Sometimes somebody's yes is a yes because it's a trauma response. How do you tell the difference? Sometimes somebody is just saying, no, do whatever you want, it's all good, it's fine. That's a fawn response. That's not from a place of okayness. So it's really difficult that we can set ourselves up for a lot of failure in a lot of these things. And you can also be too hesitant and too scared to play or do anything. I think if you've had a very grown-up conversation alongside the list, I think that's okay. You've got quite a few that are out there. Bad girl, Bible, BDSM is a really long one. That's a really long one. So like bad girl, BDSM, Bible, that's a really long one. Or you've got a few others online as well that you can use. As soon as you think of something as well, though, that you think is a turn on or not, add it. Take it away. Anyone here into bastinado or anything like, do you know what it is? So the caning and torture of feet. Would that be your thing, ever? But then people haven't heard of it. Then somebody says to you, who here feels a little worried sometimes when they don't know the meaning of something and somebody starts talking to them, especially if you're a bottom and they're a top, and you're just like, yeah, no, I'd love to try that. I'm sorry, I just talked about pulling your toenails out. Or dentistry. Is it really your thing? Now you're like, fuck, I'd rather look like an idiot and avoid a really bad situation. But I'd also rather check someone else's meaning of something, because you might use a word and somebody else says, oh, it's definitely this. And you're like, it fucking isn't. It never has been. A lot of people look like they know what they're talking about. How many of you here have met an expert in BDSM? Met an expert in BDSM? Has anybody met an expert in BDSM? No?
I mean, a lot of people like to claim they are.
Claim they are. But what is an expert? Is it experience? Have they done exams? Do they know what they're doing? It's like sex. We often assume that the person who slept with 1,000 people is more experienced than the person who slept with one person. That might be wrong. It's just different. Because the person who slept with one might have done a shit ton of things with that person for the last 50 years or something. Which is more sex than having sex one time. Well, it depends on your frequency. What is the average amount of times we have sex a week? Do you know? The English people in the UK, not just English people, in the UK, what's the average frequency of sex? Do you know? You said twice a week. Anyone else? Average frequency of sex? Once a week for around 11 minutes. Once a week. That's quite interesting, isn't it? Because that means an awful lot of people are having no sex and an awful lot of people are having a lot of sex. But it doesn't mean it's good sex. I see a lot of people on FetLife, especially younger. Sadly, I see it from a lot of younger women who I really want to meet an older experienced man or woman or whatever gender we're looking at. I want to meet someone older because they're experienced. What sort of experience? Because sometimes, who here came into the scene or into kink over the age of 40? Any of you? Couple of you. But if you look at somebody who's over 40, do we assume that they've been doing it for 20 years or 30 years? That would be disturbing if they're only just 40. But do we assume or do we ask? Because I'm going to ask. It's the same with a therapist, by the way. How many hours of practicing something makes you an expert, in theory? 10,000 hours. Just because you meet an older therapist doesn't mean they've got 10,000 hours. Doesn't mean they're a good therapist either. They might be shit at what they do. They might be dangerous, they might not be good. It's the same with our play as well. And just because you've got one person vouching for you or a partner vouching for you, does it make that person safe? Be careful on that one, because a lot of people who then break up say, they abused me, but when they were together, they vouched for them. Now what? I won't vouch for anyone, personally, because you're different to me. I do believe in the vouching system, but I'm going to take it with a pinch of salt because it worked for you with them at that time. That's all I'm going to do. It's nice that they've got people saying nice things about them. Anyone got a different question? So the question is, so who here is an introvert? Who here is an extrovert? Who here is an ambivert? And do we know what an ambivert is? So an ambivert is often somebody who flits between the two or is a learnt extrovert. You are not going to believe this, I'm an introvert. Yep, 100%. I can stand up and talk in front of thousands of people. I have done many times. However, if you say, Deb, are you coming to the party? I'll be like, yes, and I'm at home with a book in the bath or something else. I hate a lot of social situations. For example, the only reason I come to LAM now is because I have a role here. If I didn't have a role, I probably wouldn't walk through the door. If I'm going to a play party, it's because I'm running a workshop. I'm invited in as somebody and I have a role. But that's also to do with autism. When we look at introvert or extrovert, what do those words even mean? Do you know? Yeah, it's how we get our energy often, or how we replenish our energy from being with people. That's more your extrovert. and then being alone and building our energy back up. But that could also be, it could be also being with them costs too much. So it's also how we spend our energy. But that could also be some form of mental impact or mental illness. It could also be some form of neurodiversity as well. Oh, so you're slower than me. That's it, you're fucked. I know. I'll hold the door open for you for a bit longer. Anyone else here waited 10 minutes? Come in. Well, you're fucked. So how does a relationship work between an introvert and an extrovert was the question. Why can't it work is the other question. It's about expectation. I don't know about you, but when you meet someone, how many expectations do you have of the future of them that you build up in your head, and how many rules do you have in your head about what a relationship should look like or what sex and play should look like? Expectations are one of the biggest fucking enemies that we have when it comes to sex, play and relationships. If you go in thinking, oh, there are going to be problems there, there's a really interesting piece of research done with 4 groups of depressives. They all had diagnosed depression. One was a control group where nothing was done. One was given drugs, not heroin, I'm talking over-the-counter, antidepressants, right, your classic SSRI type thing. One group was sent to therapy, and one group was asked to change their language. Now, I don't understand why that and therapy is different, because I'm always asking people to change their language. Guess which group did the best? The group that changed their language. So what it means is, if I am feeling seriously depressed or I'm not feeling okay, my daughter did it to me quite a few years ago. I put some bread down to toast. Do you like that? I said bread, not toast. See, I've fallen for that joke before. Put some bread down to toast, which times my poached eggs perfectly. Some cunt has changed the timing and I didn't look, right? So I've now burnt the bread and my poached eggs are ruined. And I said, oh, for fuck's sake, Deborah, you idiot. That's what I said. And my daughter, youngest, I've got 4, who was 14 at the time, and said, really, mother, is that any way for you to talk to yourself and you're a psychologist? I went, all right, fuck off. I'm not an idiot. I've got a lot of letters after my name. I have 20 years of postgrads, 10 forms of postgrads. I have my MBA, I've got an MSc, and I've got a normal degree. Plus I've done other things and weekend courses on top. I'm far from an idiot. But the words we use, which is why I also say, please be careful. You're really late, you're dying. The words we use are really important, because if we keep using negative words, so if I'm depressed, I might say, what's the point in getting up today? I don't want to get up. I feel really sad. I've got no energy. I can't do anything. When you change your language to yourself, you actually make a fundamental difference in your brain. You can do this or not, but if I said to any of you, can you just do me a favour? Can you try and stand up? You don't have to, don't want to.
I mean, I'm comfy, so I'm sitting here.
And then can you try and sit down? Whether you did or didn't was your choice, wasn't it? Whether you can or not is different. You chose to stand, therefore you did. If you chose not to, it doesn't matter. Very often, what children use is the word, I can't, when they don't want to try something. You don't have to fail, you don't have to succeed. But the way you use language is really important in this scenario as well. When you try something new, how many of you say, I can't do that? Before you've even tried it and you don't actually know. I mean, believe me, I can't play golf, right? I've fucking tried quite a few times. That is one of the sports that I'm a absolute moron. I cannot hit that fucking ball yet. Do I want to carry on trying? No, I don't. It's not giving me any pleasure, but I would rather do different things. But a lot of sports and things I can do quite naturally. Fucking golf, no. I may be able to hit someone with a golf club. But a bigger target, but that ball, forget it. I can't do it. For whatever reason. What were you going to say? capable of not trying. What happens for you? Okay, who here has ever lived with anybody and you said to that person, on your way home, can you please pick up some milk? You ever said that to anyone? Or on your way home, can you please pick up some bread? And the person says, I'm really sorry, I'm running late, I can't. And that's kind of acceptable. We go, okay, it would have been helpful, but that's fine. How would you react if they turned around and said, no, I won't do that? Would your reaction be different?
Yeah.
Can't is an excuse often. Because of course they can fucking pick up some milk if they're late. They can, they don't want to.
What are they late for? They're coming home.
Oh, well, God knows. Rushing home, I don't know. But that's what I mean. It's an interesting, so language really matters between the introvert and the extrovert, because when we're judging and changing, if we judge that as right or wrong, that's part of the problem. How we take things. If your partner doesn't talk to you much, is your relationship going well or badly? You can't tell is the right answer. I don't fucking know. Neither is the right answer, unless you ask. If somebody isn't willing to communicate and they're saying, I'm an introvert, I don't want to talk, that's a different problem. And if you're an extrovert who gets their energy, can you go out by yourself? Can you go and get that fed? Can you leave them to feed their energy? You could be having a wank to pornography in a group of 20 people while they're reading a book. There are lots of things that we can do. It's about respecting each other. Everyone talks about communication. Yeah, comprehension is just as important. Can I check what you mean by that? What was the impact of that? Around play, around sex, around relationships. So there's no reason why an introvert and an extrovert can't have a relationship. They can feed off each other if you've got the right energy at the right time. But what does that person need for that energy? If that partner is an introvert, they might need more sleep. And if you think, nope, I'm fucking you till 4 a.m, or you're going in your cage till 3 a.m, or whatever, you fucked up your next day. That's your fault, especially if they've told you. So it's about being clever and understanding what will impact that person the next day. Anyone here heard of the spoon theory for any form of disability? So the idea is that you have X amount of spoons which represent energy every day. And sometimes people will say, I have no spoons left, or I only have 2 spoons left. But you've also got to work out for you individually what each action costs you as a spoon. I was at London Fetish Weekend quite a few years ago, and I did 6 hours of workshops back to back. 6 hours. And I sat down upstairs and I thought, fuck me, I'm tired. And I'm fucked. And this person came up to me and said, can I just ask you a question? And I said, no. I don't think that was unreasonable. But they said, well, you're fucking rude. I went, am I? Or did I just answer your question really honestly? Directness isn't very popular in the UK, if you notice. We're not very good at that. We like to dress things. But I said, no, I've just done 6 hours of back-to-back workshops. You were in every single one of them. You had a chance to ask a question. And I did say, if you've got any questions, please write to me or DM me. I need a drink and I've still got to drive home for 2 hours. I don't mean I needed a couple of vodkas because I was going to drive home, but I needed just to replenish and rehydrate. And she you're so rude. I was like, fucking hell, love, come on. Words are really important, assumptions are really important. And we don't like to be direct. And it comes back to the list as well, actually, for me. I think we need to be direct in kink, in polyamory, in play, and in sex. If we're not, people don't hear. And in England, we have this habit of saying, when someone asks you something, we feel everything, well, we fill everything with a load of bullshit. Yeah, well, actually, I mean, for me, and I think, what the fuck are you saying? You haven't even said anything yet. Answer the question. But we're so frightened of disappointing or showing our feelings. Katie Fox writes a book on watching the English. And she said the 3 chapters she had the most difficulty with, do you know what they are in the UK? Death, money, and sex. So, if you speak to a lot of GPs, anyone here a GP? If you speak to a lot of GPs, when they say, how much do you drink every week and how much do you smoke every week, they'll have a tendency to multiply that. However, we're also aware of how much sex you have every week let's just divide it back to reality. I'm being slightly facetious, but there's a truth in that we exaggerate the things we think other people will like, and we'll decrease the things that people don't like or don't have for us in any way, shape or form. So we just have to be very careful what we say and how we say it and when. We really do. And that's, who here thinks they're very English? Typically English. So now, I'm going to tell you now, you don't have to answer this, but it'll be interesting. How much do you earn a year? Right. Straight away, the money didn't come out. It was a, now, was the trying to remember, or was the of like, fuck me, that's quite a personal question. Is everyone in here willing to tell me what they earn every year? So a few of you are, but a lot of you are not. We don't talk about money in the UK either. We also don't talk about death. When you watch your average English person at a funeral, dabbing the eyes, fuck me, I was blubbering. I think I nearly pissed myself when my mum died. I was really distraught. You've got other cultures and countries where you've got people throwing themselves on a coffin. None are right, none are wrong, but the cultural restrictions are what we fall into, and they are wrong. What's right for you? BDSM falls into that as well for me. This person and I put together a Littles Club a few years ago. Fuck me. So my daughter ran a soft play. What better thing to offer to Littles than have a night in a fucking real soft play? Like, so good. We allowed nappy changing. We had very strict rules around fluids and sex and everything else as well. The people that came said it was the best club they've ever been to for their first night. No worries. They loved it. And then we booked the second one. The staff that worked it said it was incredible. They said that everyone there was more respectful than the families, than the kids. Have you seen how many fluids kids put everywhere? Jesus Christ. I've watched one of the toddlers go into an acrylic dome, drop their trousers, and just shit into it. You know, like, and where's the parent? Whereas watching these littles and bigs, like I did two different pass the parcels, one for the bigs and one for the littles. The bigs were the bitchiest bunch of people arguing over whether they were going to get a pencil or fucking socks. Everyone wanted the socks. And it was all space themed. It was so good. The feedback was unreal. The second one sold out within a few hours of us putting it online. Had a big birthday cake, did everything. It was such a good night. Why didn't the second one happen? Because the Sun got hold of it. The Sun newspaper. The comments were unbelievable. Because what people were saying is, they're a bunch of paedophiles, and the only reason they come into a soft play is because they know that children are in there. They put all their bodily fluids, so what they're saying is, I wouldn't like to go with a black light through that. I'd like to go through a black light with that after your children are in there. Because there's more piss and vomit and snot and spit from them than there ever was in this night. And it's really interesting, those misconceptions that we have around kinky people, around what we do and what we like. And even you've got them. You obviously like to say you're not judgmental. I'm sorry, we all are. We all are. If you're a therapist, and I won't put it, well, I haven't got a website. If you're a therapist, because people come to me by name and reputation, I never put that I'm non-judgmental. Why? Most therapists will say in a non-judgmental environment. When you saw me walk in, you had a judgment about me, about something, in some way, shape or form, whether it's my clothes, whether it's the fact I've got 14 piercings in one ear, or I've got an undercut, it's not even undercut, it's just shaved, and it's orange, or my age, or anything. You had an opinion on me, which is a form of judgment. The judgment isn't the issue, it's what the fuck you do with it that makes you a cunt or not. That's the thing that makes the difference, doesn't it? When we comment on what people look like or who they are, we all have a judgment. Problem is, everyone can have a judgment if you are kinky or queer, or if you've transitioned, or if you are, everyone's got an opinion as soon as you say it, or your sexuality, or your gender. Gosh. And we do, to a certain extent. It's just, again, the use of words, the damage that they do, and how healthy it is. But yeah, that night was, it's one of the best nights ever, but second one never took place, and everyone was so upset, including me. But when I could speak to people individually, I went to a christening a few weeks after it hit the sun. And somebody came up to me, one of the other coaches, to do with cheerleading, and she said, Deb, can I have a word about that whole Planet Poppy's playground thing? And I said, yeah, let's have a chat. She's got her little girl with her, who's only about 4 months old. She's not the one being christened, right? I said, go and grab some food, leave her with me, see if she goes to sleep. So she said, no, she won't sleep on anyone, forget it, it's not going to happen. And I went, okay, it's up to you, don't have to. Gives her to me. Within 2 minutes, she's asleep on my shoulder, completely flat out. And I'm like, oh, okay. So she's fast asleep. They come back and they're like, she doesn't sleep on anyone, this is crazy. I went, maybe I'm quite calm. I can be. And then I said, let's sit down then. She went, don't sit down with her, don't sit down. And I was like, all right, precious parent. I said, you just told me she couldn't sleep on me. Let me just try and sit down. Sat down really slowly. That kid stayed asleep for an hour and a half on my shoulder. And we discussed it. Her husband was especially worried. He said, like, so are you into those things? I went, yes, we all know I am. I'm out. I'm as out as fucking anything. Everyone knows. Although people still try to out me. I've had things on Facebook and all sorts. Believe me. People still try to out you even when you're out. It's quite shocking. And then basically towards the end of the conversation, oh, so they're not all perverts. I went, oh, we're all perverts. We're just not paedophiles. So we like things. I said, but I'm sorry, if you've ever had a blindfold on or been tied up or done something, that is kink. It's a little bit out of the realm of vanilla. And I said, so if I'm one, she went, no, but you're okay. It's the others I'm worried about. I'm like, fucking hell. How many conversations do you need to have for people to understand? Most people, who here, okay, let's do this a different way. What percentage of the UK is LGBTQI? Do you know? How many? 30, okay. What do you think? 30% is one of the things. So how many people in the UK, what percentage of the UK is LGBTQI? Kinky, queer, half. Someone says we've got 30, we've got 50. 17, 10, it's 6. 6% of the UK is me, or maybe you. Problem is, you make your friends in your areas. In my world, 90% of my world is LGBTQI. But it skews what we see and what we experience. How many people are kinky? Go on. Absolutely depends on how you phrase the question. Yeah. So it starts with less than LGBTQI up to near enough 90% of the world. Because what is kinky? If you've turned right at Anne Summers more than once, I'm not talking about first class and cabin, or like, that. If you've turned right, if you've gone for that stuff, you could be deemed or seen as kinky or alternative. But then your kink and alternative might be very different to mine when I'm somebody who likes being punched and called a worthless cunt. How can you do that? You're letting down women. I think you find I'm a woman who makes her choices. That's not letting down women. The whole point is having the choice. So it's really interesting that we're a very small percentage of the community. However, that also means there's a lot more judgment. There's a lot more opinions on us. To them, kink is a dog or a cat or a... I used to have a friend, so what was just said was that a lot of vanilla people won't describe what they do as kinky. I used to have a friend who used to have a t-shirt, and he said, you may think using a feather is kinky, give me the whole chicken. And I'm not quite sure what that meant, fully, but I think I get the drift. Not quite sure, but the drift was there. Because your idea of kink is very different to mine, which is why, again, with those fucking lists and everything, we still need to ask, what does that mean to you? Like that chain, the flogger that you've got there, that could be used for sensual play. It could be used for conduction. It could be used for stroking. It could be used for a temperature play, or that could really fucking damage someone's skin and open them up, depending on how it's used and where. So kinky, someone might go, fucking hell, you're extreme. All I do is stroke it over my body because I like it cold. Not so extreme. So it all depends on what we're into. Anyway, I hope I've answered your questions. Thank you for coming, and I'm not here next month, but I'm here the month after. Thank you.